So my research was a qualitative study that was basically aimed to understand how parent involvement is different among first and second generation Latinx college students and how they experience higher education, but also the use of student support systems. Basically, in the hopes to aim to build better relationships with parents and institutions, but also to be able to retain those first generation, second generation Latinx students. Um, so basically, I interviewed about six first generation Latinx students, and some of the some of the things about my study was that unfortunately I wasn't able to actually interview Latinx parents, but I was able to get some information from the students that I did interview. And basically, the main results that I found was that first generation Latinx students have a sense of parent involvement that is very hands off. So a lot of parents are like, I trust you, I believe in you, and you're going to make the best choice for yourself. A lot of students mention how being involved in on campus, whether it's a job, a lab, or other extracurriculars, it was a source of relief and a source of support. And many times, some of the Latinx parents would be very hesitant for their students to join those. So it's really interesting to find that finding. And I think it shows more about how the universities can better support first generation Latinx students in having more mental health support, kind of taking away of the stigma, but also utilizing the support that these students already have, such as orgs, labs, employers, to be able to reach to those students. And also it kind of acknowledges how there are some conflicting, I would say, conflicting ideas of what Latinx parents think a college student is. So there needs to be, of course, more education around that of what does it really mean to be a college student. So those were some of the things that I found out that were really interesting.
My project was narrative-based. My research explored the criminalization of Black girls in K through 12 schools in the United States. And the main findings of my research was the emergence of personal and shared trauma among Black girls who attended school in the United States, as well as this phenomenon of adultification, which is basically the case in which school professionals were treating Black girls as if they were not children and treating them as if they were older than what they were and expecting them to behave in ways that 20-year-olds or 30-year-old women would be behaving. And so as a result of that, they received harsh discipline. And so those are some of the elements that were incorporated into how criminalization is at play in schools. Another thing that was evident was the lack of attention and cultural understanding from school professionals that the interviewees expressed. And for this research, I was able to interview 18 Black girls and women who attended schools in different areas in the United States. And I wanted to focus more so on the breadth of it. And so rather than the depth and diving into a specific location, I wanted to see how these patterns are playing out across different states and across different cities in the United States. And another thing that is worth mentioning are the recommendations that I found to be beneficial. And one of the main ones is the importance of school professionals to undergo training that allows them to acknowledge and identify the impact of trauma on the behavior of students, as well as I recommend that schools collaborate with organizations that are informed of and dedicated to serving the needs of Black girls and students from other marginalized communities, because this can create spaces for them to not only speak about their experiences and kind of have that feedback collaborative nature within schools, but then it also gives Black girls an opportunity to be involved in the process and the development of the policies that they will be ultimately affected by. So that's that in a nutshell.
For me, this research really hits home. I am an only child from a single parent household, so really going into college as a first generation student, I really looked for support at the university, as well as my mom supported me however she could. So I always had this idea of like, how can my family be more involved in my education, and help me? And so the idea was kind of already planted in me of like, oh, I would like to figure out what can be done. And I am a McNair scholar, but prior to that, applied to I applied to talk about my research in a conference in NOX, so the National Association of Chicano Studies. And that's when I first started to like emerge the idea and like presenting it to a full audience. And McNair really gave me the tool. So the next step for me was kind of like, okay, I already talked about it, so let's actually publish it. And my audience, I guess, was also like first generation students, because I also want them to know that it is possible, that like it's not, I guess, to set like high standards, like this is like the next step that you have the ability to do, right? Because I never thought of writing an article, that I would be writing an article, let alone like presenting it. So this was really like a next step for those. And I also think just in general, my research is important, especially since we're going to have more Latinx students applying and going to university. So this is going to be a big societal thing. And I think family is a core value to not only Latinx students, but to everyone in general. And it's really important to keep in mind that families play a big role. So I would say both my audience was reaching faculty and university staff, but also first generation Latinx students and students of color who might feel hesitant or intimidated with research, kind of to share my story.
I really hoped to reach educators and school professionals at different levels, those, secondary, primary, secondary, college, graduate school level, because this is an issue that's happening in all institutional and educational settings. So I was really hoping to, reach educators and those who are involved in helping to create the policies and the learning environment in which our students are engaged in. I also wanted to reach Black girls and Black women because I wanted them to know and see that not only are their experiences being acknowledged, but that something is being done to address it. And that basically, as a Black woman, as someone who has had experiences with harsh discipline and exclusionary discipline in high school, I really wanted not only this issue to be brought to the scene because of my personal experiences, but the reality that I'm not the only one and that these aren't isolated situations and incidences. So I really wanted Black women and Black girls also to know that I'm like out here advocating for them and like making sure that our environments and the spaces in which we are learning in are becoming safer for us to just learn like human beings. It was really exciting to see the fact that people were clicking on it in the first place and downloading it. That was just really cool. And I've had people reach out to me as well to talk about the topics and ask questions. And that was a really big deal for me because it's sparking conversation. And that, shows me that, okay, like I made the right decision and following through with, putting my work out there, putting this research out there. So I feel it's really cool. I feel really good about it. I've had a non-Black parent who has adopted children who are Black daughters, and they reached out to me about the topic. They actually thanked me for putting it out there so that they were more aware about the experiences that their children may go through or may witness. And then I've had some of my family members who are raising young Black daughters talk to me about it as well, so that they can be more informed about the mental health of their children and how again, their experiences in school may be affecting them as a human being and as a learner?
For me, I mean, I have taken a look at the metrics, but I'm not like constantly checking them. I think I have probably less compared to all the other authors, but I think it's just the fact of my discipline. I'm trying to combine parent involvement as well as student success and student retention. So I feel like probably that's one of the reasons why. I haven't had anyone reach out. However, as a first gen, and like I said, I never really thought myself as an article author. It's really cool to see that, there's 30 people have seen it, there's 7 downloads, and like, I don't know, it's just really cool that like there's people actually reading what I wrote and are taking it in. So just in general, like I'm just really excited that my article is getting engagement at all.
With e-scholarship, we haven't lost interest and we haven't lost readers from not being able to disseminate these paper copies. So that's been very helpful. And also just being able to have that somewhere online where it'll be forever. I think that's also a really, really valuable tool, especially in applying to graduate school and moving forward, referring someone to the link or, sharing your publication that way, I think is going to be very, very valuable to student authors.
I definitely feel that it's really important for students to have this platform of being able to publish their research. I know my peers have done really amazing research, and it just, it needs to go to the next level. It's not enough to just present it to an audience. It's really important information and research and topics that matter to the whole society that should be out there. And so I think, having this platform and like being able to publish students' work is amazing. And I think it should continue going on to not only, for the well-being of getting knowledge, but also for like students' motivation to see themselves as professionals, to see themselves as graduate students and PhD. And like, I think just take responsibility of where we want to take the world, especially with important topics. And again, I want to also emphasize, like, research is not only about STEM. It's not only about the lab, right? For me, as a human development major, interdisciplinary is very important. And I feel like this journal really provides the opportunity for different fields to come together. And I think that's amazing and, really important for students to have access to.
For me, I'm very grateful to have been a part of a project like this, a publication like this, because one of my issues with academia is the lack of access to information, physically and like language-wise as well. So the fact that this is open to the public and, basically if you have internet, you have access, which again, that's also another issue, but more people have access to it than otherwise. And I love that idea. And I think more research publications and work in institutions need to be like this because, again, we're talking about access. And oftentimes, like, the communities that are being researched don't even have the resources to read the information that, is culminated. So that's an issue. But yeah, I'm very, very grateful to have been a part of a project like this. So, yeah.
It's very nice and rewarding listening to your responses. And thank you for choosing our journal to submit your paper. It was very fun working with you. It only motivates me to work harder on the next volume, and it will only make everything go forward and push it and then spread the words to more people.
Wanted to thank everybody for being so supportive, and also for the student authors. First of all, for submitting your work, having the courage to do it. It's very important. And it's also, it's really gratifying for me to, just have had this idea about what I wish I would have had during my cohort and actually, being able to bring that into fruition and having a lot of support, especially from Belinda, in making it happen. So I'm just very glad we received your papers, that you were so graceful in responding to comments and making the necessary changes. I had very, very high standards because I wanted to make sure that the voices that you were amplifying through your research, I really wanted to make sure that that came through in this journal. So I hope this first volume will set the stage for years to come. And just know that I'm very grateful for everyone's support on this.
I remember when I was submitting my paper, I was so worried about like how many edits I was gonna get back and like everything that had to move, and like I kept on, going to professors and asking them like, okay, what am I missing? And like honestly, like this process is a little bit intimidating, but being able to do it with other students who are also in the same boat as you, also learning, really makes it like less scary for me, because I was able to kind of like trust my peers, as well as like understand that the language and kind of like the world of research and what it, the way I see it kind of is like how to frame your research in a way that will help others understand and not misconstrue what the meaning is, but also like make it in a way that is accessible for everyone to understand. Because as a researcher, sometimes you can get into your head a little bit, and so I really like appreciate like all the edits and all the hard work that our editors did. And again, like the process was a little bit intimidating, but it was worth it in the end. I'm so proud of the outcome and like all the comments and all the advice that I got into finalizing my paper and having it published. And like again, opportunity for others to see it is just so meaningful and so grateful, and I'm so happy for this opportunity.
I'm so glad we were able to do this interview, because I was able to receive insight on your side of the process, the editing and the publication process. And it really did take like a team of people to make this, come to fruition. So I'm just very grateful that you had this idea and that you had people to come together and support you in this, and that we were able to create something that, like you all have mentioned, will be something that can be referenced in the future and set the bar. I feel like the feedback that I received in my writing made me a better writer and made me think differently about the field and realm in which I was writing. And so I was able to take other things into consideration. And so overall, I'm just very grateful again for the opportunity and the experience. So thank you.